No discussion about coding and architecture will be complete without talking about design patterns. You might have heard about it before, and perhaps you already know everything there is to know about it, but it's always a good idea to have a reminder about one of the most well-known terms in the software industry. So, what are design patterns? The basic definition is that design patterns are a collection of general, reusable solutions to common problems in software design. When writing software, there are a lot of small problems that you will find yourself dealing with frequently. Questions like how to communicate between classes, or how to initialize interface implementations, or how to access data stores, and lots more are questions almost every software developer has to answer somewhere along the lines. Design patterns are a set of solutions or patterns that strive to answer those questions and provide a well-defined pattern or template for those problems. Using design patterns, you will gain the following benefits. The pattern is already tested and used by a lot of developers. There is no need to reinvent the wheel, and you can reuse solutions that were already formulated and implemented by the brightest minds in the industry. Design patterns will often make your code easier to read and modify, thus making the application more flexible, and this is always a good cause. Design patterns were first introduced on 1987, but became really famous when this book was published in 1994 by the Gang of Four: Eric Gamma, Richard Helm, Ralph Johnson, and John Vlissides. This book brought design patterns to the attention of the software industry and laid the foundation for the way of thinking we have today with patterns and practices. If you haven't read it already, you definitely should. You can find a link for purchasing the book in the accompanied resources document at the end of this section. Now, you might be thinking, why should an architect learn about design patterns? These patterns are used in the development process and they have nothing to do with the bigger picture. Well, you have a point. The design patterns are really geared more towards developers, but there are two important reasons that a software architect should be at least aware of them. First, the patterns have architectural aspects. Although small in scale, each pattern actually discusses a proposed architecture that solves a given problem. You might call it a microarchitecture, but it's still an architecture. Remember the goal of the architecture? To make the application fast, secure, reliable, and easy to maintain? Well, implementing the relevant design patterns will definitely help making the application more reliable and easier to maintain, which is definitely one of the goals of an architect. Second, we already talked about it and we will keep talking about it. The architect should always be familiar with what's going on in the application's code. He must be able to review the code, find problems in it, and even write some. Since design patterns are such an important tool for the developers, the architect must be familiar with them too. Now, as you might guess, there are a lot of design patterns. As you can see in this Wikipedia screenshot, there are dozens of them. We will focus on 4 of them, which I believe are very important and very common. You will almost certain you will find opportunities to implement those patterns in your application, and of course I encourage you to learn and implement the rest too. The patterns we will discuss are factory, repository, facade, and command. So let's go and begin with the factory pattern.